Today's episode is brought to you by Freedom Project Academy. Looking for a K-12 classical online school built on Judeo-Christian values? FPA is enrolling now for the fall. Request your free information packet at freedomforschool.com. That's freedom, F-O-R, school.com.
It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. I'm David Fiorazzo, filling in again for the good doctor this week. And joining me, Alex Newman from Florida. Hi, Alex.
How are you?
Good, man. Enjoyed yesterday. Let's have some more fun today. Well, we've got a lot to share. So remember, friends, you need to hit that share button and let's get educated. Okay, so we're starting in Florida. And before we got on the air today, I was talking about Alex, about how I covet some things about his state, including his governor. So forgive me. I always have to go to the Lord and ask for forgiveness for coveting. But Florida patriots continue taking back the classroom. This time, it's by tossing out 54 math textbooks featuring critical race theory and Common Core principles. Watch this video.
Simplify the problem, simplify the math textbook, the governor says.
Math is about getting the right answer, and we want kids to learn to think so they get the right answer. It's not about how you feel about the problem or to introduce some of these other things.
These other things, according to DeSantis and the state's education department, are elements of social and emotional learning and critical race theory. The state rejected 28 K-12 math textbooks on that basis among the 54 textbooks, which didn't make the cut.
I think that the people using that as a way of instigating a culture war don't even understand what CRT is and that it's not even taught at K-12 schools.
Sarah Leonardi is a Broward School Board member and a former teacher. Leonardi says coming out of the pandemic, more, not less, social emotional learning concepts are needed to address the mental health needs of students. The textbook companies can appeal their rejections, make changes, and their products could still end up in backpacks if the state approves.
So, Alex Newman, most of us understand why schools, or parents, I should say, are concerned about certain textbooks and textbook publishers and certain subjects like history or science or something like that being rewritten or edited or indoctrination. What about math? How do they squeeze some of this stuff into math? Can you explain that for some of our viewers?
Yeah, happy to. And I've seen this over and over and over again. This is not a new problem, Dave. But what they're doing is they're inserting bizarre propaganda into the questions. Like, so you've had 18 sexual partners this year, and you have 27 more next year. How many total sexual partners do you feel like you've had? This morning you felt like an agender. Next week you feel like a tree gender. And after that you feel like a trigender. How many genders in total have you identified with over the last week? I'm exaggerating, but only a little bit. This stuff has gotten so blatant, and this stuff is in the math questions. You know, the social justice stuff, the critical race theory stuff, they are embedding it into every element of the program. And I know some of the people that were involved in ensuring that these disgusting propaganda books didn't end up in the government brainwash camps of the state of Florida. As far as I'm concerned, it's very, very good news. My one big concern, though, David, is that parents who are kind of on the fence, maybe I should take my kids out. They know that what's going on there is wrong, but they just haven't quite taken that leap. They might say, well, as long as DeSantis is governor, it's probably going to be okay. It's not going to be okay, folks. You can take all these things out and then some, and it's still going to be an ungodly, anti-biblical, dangerous indoctrination.
This has got to be something that each state has to fight. And how much power does Ron DeSantis have? I appreciate his vision and his leadership, but how much power when it comes to what's the agenda of the NEA, the mothership, and the National Education Association, and what comes down as far as curriculum? How can other states do this?
Well, a lot of it has to go through the legislature. A lot of it is based on state law. And so in Florida, we have an education commissioner. He's not elected, he's appointed. And our education commissioner happens to be a pretty solid conservative. So that's been very good. Every state's got their own little differences in the way the system is set up. Some have, very strong, quote unquote, local control, which, they're still using the same disgusting Common Core standards, but they get a little bit more leeway in terms of what books and what curricula to choose. Whereas other states, it's really top-down centralized. So it's going to look different in every state, but I do encourage parents, do not be deceived by this. Yes, it's good for the people who are still stuck in there, but this is not an excuse to continue sending your children to the government's brainwash centers. You must get them out.
Okay, people that are watching the Dr. Duke Show or have been watching for any time understand what critical race theory is, but we always have newer listeners tuning in and new people find out about the program. And tell us a little bit about social emotional learning and how on earth that fits into math.
Yeah, social emotional learning is one of those things that's absolutely ubiquitous. We could have a 2-hour show on this and it would not be adequate. I first got wind of this years ago and started digging into it, and then I did a major investigative piece that was in the Epoch Times last year called Trading Academics for Far Left Social Emotional Learning. And what I quickly discovered is that this is a comprehensive tool for indoctrinating children. It's a way of manipulating them into believing the political, ideological, cultural, religious, political viewpoints that they want them to have. And it also, incidentally, has its roots in the occult. And it didn't take me 10 minutes to figure this out. I went to castle.org, which is the website of the main organization peddling this garbage, funded by Bill Gates, funded by all the usual suspects. It's the Collaborative or Academic Social Emotional Learning, something like that. And I went to their history page, and I said, well, the idea for this first came from the Fetzer Institute. I thought, oh, that's interesting. We better find out what the Fetzer Institute is. Turns out the Fetzer Institute is a New Age occult weirdo organization founded by a New Age occultist. And the New Age occultist who founded it, Mr. Fetzer, he brought all his weirdos together, and they prayed this prayer, this invocation that Alice Bailey, the founder of the Lucifer Publishing Company, gave. She claimed to be communicating with these spiritual entities she called Ascended Masters. So all of this has its root in the occult, and all of it, if you go to their website, is designed to make your children believe absurdities.
Right, and interesting, the Lucius Trust, right? Mm-hmm. Try to sugarcoat it a little bit. It sounds a little bit better than Lucifer. Alex, really quickly, the occult you mentioned, I think Wicca, I think the international religion, international faith of the Wiccan Church, that is a 501c3 religious organization, and public schools have taught Harry Potter lessons. They've got lesson plans with Harry Potter and witchcraft. Just share your thoughts briefly on that.
Well, the witchcraft also has been ubiquitous, and Disney actually helped play a major role in this, but it's in the school books, it's in the assigned readings, and it's in Harry Potter. And a lot of people get mad at me when I say I don't let my kids read Harry Potter. There's endless amounts of great literature for children to read. There's endless amounts of good material for children to read. Why do I need to fill up the limited amount of time they have available for reading with things that promote and glorify witchcraft and sorcery and magic and things like that? In my personal opinion, that's not what I do with my kids, and I do encourage parents to be more vigilant about this stuff. I mean, now that you know how Disney has been quietly inserting this propaganda in there and they want to do it even more, recognize that there are evil people and evil forces that are constantly after your children, and your job as a parent is to protect them as best as you can from that. I encourage parents to really take that responsibility seriously.
Yeah, they have a big decision to make, some of them, because you can no longer say that you did not know. We've got so much more to come on the Dr. Duke Show. Stay with us.
With all the censorship taking place on social media platforms, we've made it easy to keep up with your favorite content. Simply download the Freedom Project Media app in your app store. Get access to 18 new videos a week, plus thousands of archived shows, lecture series, and educational animations. Download the Freedom Project Media app on your Apple TV, Roku, tablet, or phone, and make sure you allow for notifications to keep you informed.
All right, we're back with Alex Newman as we move on to our next story, and we seem to have a little theme going here today. National Math Council calls on schools to focus on social justice in their mathematics lessons to combat privilege and oppression. This is from Blaze Media. Alex Newman, now we're working all this together here. It's still under math, but social justice. And this is training math teachers across the U.S. and Canada who want these concepts. They're aiming to improve the world, by the way, but they want to inject this social justice ideology and what they call, quote, fair and equitable teaching practices into math, promoting, quote, positive mathematics learning and achievement. Alex, your thoughts?
Yeah, and it's really funny that we're talking about these two on the same episode, because when DeSantis and the state government here in Florida said we were not going to tolerate all these crazy math books and stuff, you had endless numbers of radical left-wing activists posing as teachers shrieking about, oh, what a conspiracy theory, there's no indoctrination in the math, and then in the very next story we're discussing, oh, actually, yeah, we should be promoting more social justice in the math books. So who's lying, right? They're all lying. That's how they do. They're always lying all the time, and they want your kids in every way possible.
I found another code word, Alex Newman, in this article. It says, we must hold the profession and our organizations accountable to making a just and equitable mathematics education a sustainable reality. So now what are they bringing in? The environmentalism, save the planet, save the math? What are they doing here? Sustainable? What are your thoughts on that? Just, equitable mathematics education, a sustainable reality?
Well, all they're doing, David, is complying with the United Nations. See, in 1991 and 92, all the governments of the world came together in Rio de Janeiro, and they came up with Agenda 21. Agenda 21 is the agenda for the 21st century, and it's all about what they call sustainable development. Now, if you want to understand sustainable development, it's basically biblical morality inverted. So, God ordained certain things. These people want to overturn all those things, and you can apply that test to just about any policy that comes out of this. So they all signed this agreement, Agenda 21. It's massive, 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 and you can find it on the UN's webpage. And in Chapter 36, they actually have the section on education. And one of the things they say in there is that, education has to change the attitudes, values, beliefs, behavior of all the children. They say it should include spirituality education, which goes right in with that new age occultism coming through social emotional learning. If you don't believe me, do the research. It is blatant and it's in your face. And then they say in that same document, again, this is international policy signed by all the governments in the world, this agenda has to be infused into all subject matters, all elements of the curriculum. And so it's not enough to just brainwash the kids in science class and in history class. It's got to be in the math class. It's got to be in the English class. It's got to be in PE class, that they've got to be bombarded with the sustainable development propaganda. And so that's what they're doing. They're just complying with the international agreements that are in place now.
Wow, excellent point and reminder that they are trying to get every subject, everything that you could possibly go into the public schools and learn on whatever subject it is. They're trying to inject this. And it is amazing. It's more amazing, Alex, that they've been doing it for so long and people are now starting to catch on and push back. Where were the parents? Anyway, we got to take another break. More to come.
Today's show is sponsored by our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% on all items at MyPillow.com when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Support this show by supporting a great American company.
All right, moving on to our next story, and we've got a video in a minute, but Massachusetts parents are suing the school. It's interesting, again, Massachusetts, right? They say officials encouraged children to use new names, pronouns, without consent. Consent has been a big story here, and we like the fact that even in blue states, parents are pushing back on this craziness, this moral relativism on steroids. Take a quick look at this.
Two sets of parents in Ludlow filed a lawsuit in federal court claiming Paul R. Baird Middle School did not keep them in the loop when discussing their children's gender identities, including requests to call them by different names and using different pronouns.
The school is actively hiding information about how students are self-identifying, what names they want to be used as.
Andrew Beckwith is the attorney representing the families. We searched the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education website for its guidance to public schools on this topic. We found this. Transgender and gender nonconforming students may decide to discuss and express their gender identity openly and may decide when, with whom, and how much to share private information. If a student is under 14 and is not yet in the 9th grade, the student's parent alone has the authority to decide on disclosures and other student record matters. Beckwith says the students are under 14. We asked what the plaintiffs want to see happen.
We'd love to see a court tell the school that they have to stop this policy, that they have to keep parents informed and involved in their children's lives.
So ultimately, it should be up to the parents, but they're kind of getting their way around that and trying to find new ways to kind of escape that or avoid that. Alex, your thoughts? It's very deceptive, isn't it?
It is, and unfortunately, it's typical of what we're seeing all across the country. So all these states are passing these parental Bill of Rights laws where parents are supposed to be informed of what's going on with their children. If their boys are coming to school wearing a dress, if they're demanding that they be called Sally when their name is Paul. We've got laws now all across the country proliferating where schools are supposed to be letting parents know, and you'd think that'd be common sense, and yet they're always looking for ways around it. We saw that here in Florida with this, they call it the Don't Say Gay bill, which is totally baloney. But now we see teachers saying, okay, well, if you're going to say that, then we're just not, if we can't talk about sexuality and gender with children in kindergarten, then we won't use he, she pronouns for them anymore. They're all going to have to call us mix. We're not going to accept any books that have mother, father, husband, wife. And I've been talking to parents right now. I'm actually working on a big story about this, David, about all across the country. Parents are telling me that their children are coming to school and they're being told by their teachers, by the faculty, that they are transgenders and that they need to, get support for their transgenderism and that they can't talk to their parents about this because their parents are bigots. What's going on is beyond disgusting, David.
So, Alex, really quick, we talk a lot about parents and how parents should respond. We hope more will push back. But we've got some insiders here in our neck of the woods in the public school system that are Christians, not a lot, but there are some constantly sending me information or us. They're trying to expose this. And one of them said a student approached him and demanded to be called by a different whatever pronouns. What advice can you give Christian teachers in the system when that happens?
Yeah, and that's a totally separate thing from Christian families with their children in public school. I said to them, you need to get your children out immediately. To Christian teachers in the system, God bless you. We are praying for you. Do what you can to shine a light in there and reflect God's glory and tell the truth to these students. But I think you need to recognize, and I think you need to come to peace with the fact that there's a very real chance you're going to face persecution up to and including termination for doing that. And so you need to make a decision. I know multiple, in fact, some very close personal friends who have resigned from the government school system rather than teach homosexuality, transgenderism, and stuff to children. And I think, stay as long as you can, do the best you can, shine as much light into that dark environment as you can in the time that you have there, but recognize that if you do your duty, if you perform your obligations to God, to truth, to country, to family, chances are very good you're not going to last long, and you need to be comfortable with that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I'm so glad there are lawsuits. I'm so glad Christian parents especially, but teachers as well. You've got to fight this, or you've got to say, you know what, I'm not going to conform, because they're going to want you to compromise, conform, silence the biblical worldview, and even science and biology and truth, right? This is where they're going. So, Alex, I think we got to take another break here, but Before We Go is coming up next. We're going to be counting down our top 5 Babylon Bee headlines, so you can find out which one takes the top prize when we return on the Dr. Duke Show. All right, before we go, let's take a little time to fill you in on a few stories we've been talking about here around the office. Let's start with a story that seems to be too absurd to be real, and yet here we are. The PTA at an elementary school in Scottsdale, Arizona recently hired a DJ to lead their disco-themed event. The only problem? 2 woke social justice activists called out the school for allowing the DJ to dress in blackface. There's only one problem. Watch this. Well, it turns out DJ Kim Coco Hunter is actually a black man. The two party poopers who mistakenly called out the school, they've been identified as Stuart Roden and Jill Lassen. Roden is an instructor for Arizona State University and a member of the Scottsdale Unified School District Equity and Inclusion Committee. Lassen is the co-chairman of the Scottsdale Parents Council's Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee. So, needless to say, I think we can all agree that Mr. Hunter is indeed black, and the two accusers will be eating crow for quite a while. So moving on, who's hungry? Well, one of the world's largest restaurant chains in the world recently made a whopper of a mistake. Apparently, as a way of connecting the Last Supper to fast food, Burger King in Spain thought it was appropriate to cite Christ's words to promote their vegetarian menu. Now, the company launched a campaign with ads saying, "Take all of you and eat it," and "flesh of my flesh," to promote their vegetable sandwich. When? During Holy Week. Oh gosh, so as you can imagine, the ads sparked major backlash in Spain, where 60% of the population is Catholic. Of course, Burger King responded saying, the intention of this campaign, executed by our partner in Spain, was never to offend. However, we are aware that it did, and as a result, the ads were quickly taken down. We apologize for any offense. So, Alex, you're a world traveler. Have you ever seen this kind of advertising, especially around a holy season and in a Catholic country or Christian country? What are your thoughts?
Well, it's definitely getting more and more extreme, and the only reason Burger King is apologizing is because the publicity was so bad. But even here in the United States, they were marketing the LGBT stuff. They were doing rainbow-colored, whatever it was, French fries, wrappers or something, and that was here in the United States. I guess now they moved to Canada. They used to be headquartered in Miami, but they didn't want to pay so much tax, so they moved up to Canada, and I don't blame them for that. I don't begrudge them that. But the fact that they're promoting this crazy propaganda like Disney and others, that's what really bothers me. And frankly, I'm not surprised at all to see them stepping it like that in Spain, because unfortunately the woke activists are doing their best to take over corporate boards and governments and the rest of it, and they don't really, they kind of live in a bubble, right? They don't realize how offensive that is to normal people.
Yeah, it's really amazing. You mentioned, and I've seen these rainbow flags everywhere on corporate logos or different things during different times. So it's interesting. Next month, of course, is Pride Month. Wait a minute, that's May. June is Pride Month, but it seems like this is Pride Year. Every year can be Pride Year because it doesn't stop in June, does it?
No, it's pride time all the time. It's interesting because pride is one of the most significant sins that you can commit if you read your Bible. And so, isn't it ironic that we're proud of another sin? It's not gonna go over well. It's not gonna work out well.
No. Well, all right. We're gonna wrap things up here. Our favorite segment of the week. Alex, we love the Babylon Bee's satirical headlines, and we've selected our top 5 for the week. Hard to narrow it down. Let's take a look and pick our favorite at the end. We start with Netflix stock crushed after revelation all 200 million subscribers are sharing one account. Conservatives of TikTok formed to share videos of conservatives sharing sensible opinions everywhere everyone agrees with. Next, second grade class held on airplane so kids won't have to wear masks. Next, judge rules that airplane passengers no longer have to pretend to eat for 5 straight hours. And finally, Biden worried he forgot his meds again after seeing large bunny approaching on the White House lawn. So Alex, which one of these takes top prize in your book?
Oh man, the Babylon Bee is a priceless treasure, and I can't pick just one. They're all too good.
Well, it's interesting that they had to come out with not the bee, because the Babylon Bee was coming up with these headlines, people going, is that real or is that satire? So now they have not the bee, so you have to make sure you know this is actually happening and it's not satire. But anyway, that wraps up this show. Alex, it was a pleasure sharing the stage with you, and you can connect with Alex on social media and at his website, libertysentinel.org. You can also connect with me by visiting davidfiorazo.com. It was also a pleasure filling in for Dr. Duke, but not to worry, he and Katie will be back again on Monday. For all of us here at Freedom Project, stay educated, my friends.